Our guest this episode is Victoria Matey, an event psychology expert who helps organizations design experiences that truly resonate with how people think, feel, and behave. With over 20 years in the event industry and a master's in international events management, she blends behavioral science, psychology, and neuroscience to help teams achieve better results with much less effort. She's the creator of the Event Psychology Lab, author of 10 Principles of Strategic Event Planning, and a driving force behind the MPI Event Psychology Certification. It's a bit of a tongue twister. She's here to talk how understanding human behavior transforms event experiences. Please welcome to the podcast, Victoria Matey. Victoria, so glad you're here. Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly my pleasure.
Yes. So you've been in the events industry for 20 years as an event planner, or what is that background of the 20 years that we're talking about here?
That's correct. I've been an event planner and I fell in events by chance, as many of us do.
Right.
So my first university degree is in linguistics, and that's where I studied psychology as part of my program as well. And so I ended up writing a thesis in cognitive linguistics. So I was always interested in how, in the role psychology plays in professional and personal lives. But in particular, when I studied, language, it was interesting for me to explore the power of language as well. So that's how I ended up with that thesis. And then I worked in events for many years. Then I switched to consulting. And at some point, I decided that we don't do enough in events when it comes to studying or kind of understanding how people work,
Yeah.
And so I decided to kind of combine these two passions of mine, events and psychology. And I started my work in this direction, exploring what kind of insights from behavioral science, psychology, and neuroscience can be used in event planning, event marketing, experience design, you name it.
Okay. I love how it comes together like that. My wife actually has a linguistics degree too, but not on the psychological side like you're talking about. So so now that you've combined these two passions and expertise, if you will, you're now consulting with companies, with events to make them just work for humans, almost like, human-centric events in a way.
Yes, that's
Would you
true.
put it that way? I'm in the right ballpark there? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So my work is divided between consulting and education.
Okay.
And I also do some sort of side projects that, my clients would kind of like me to do for them when it comes to event services, right? Event products that are not events. I partner with tech companies, for example, if they want to understand better the psychology behind their products or their services. I do a lot of content creation and research as well. But the main directions are consulting and education. So I do trainings for event teams. I do educational sessions, and like you said, I'm the creator of my own online course about event psychology, and also I partnered with the MPI Academy
Yeah.
to create the first ever event psychology certification course, which I'm very proud of because that's the most sort of comprehensive and the fullest, the most complete version of all content on event psychology approach.
Nice. So I have a question because I've been to a ton of events, our listeners have probably been to a ton of events. What is maybe 1 to 3 things, and I bet you have a list like a mile long, but what are a few of the top 3 things that that the event planners are doing wrong, or the event design is not conducive to the human experience of consuming that event? Like what drives you crazy, Victoria, when you go to an event and you're like, oh, why are they doing this?
Gosh, where do I start? Well,
Right.
actually, a lot of things, well, I should say that event organizers, many event organizers do great job in kind of putting humans first. Let's put it that way. But um, the thing is that many organizers, even those who do it right, they do it based on gut feel, or they just follow what others do. They kind of catching up on trends.
Mm-hmm.
And in current environment, that's not enough. You cannot just catch up all the time, right? You need to be ahead of the curve. And for that, you need to be very strategic and sort of very comprehensive in your approach. And when you understand how humans work, when you understand human behavior and human mind better, how brains are wired, right? That actually provides you with this edge, with that advantage, because you are able to create solutions or solve your challenges, not just because you feel like that or because you saw some idea and you just steal it, right? Or you just copy
Mm-hmm.
something that worked last year, but because there is a system and you're intentional about
Right.
applying those solutions.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's one thing.
Victoria, you didn't answer my question though. I said, so
Right.
what are those
Okay.
things? And then let's break it down, maybe why that's the case, right? Maybe
Right.
as a great
Okay.
example.
So the one of the examples is designing for attention. I think a lot of effort goes into grabbing attention, right?
Sure.
Big stages, fast pacing, constant sensory stimulation.
Yeah.
And that's what many people assume, many organizers assume would work best because the attention is there. But attention is temporary, it's fleeting. And what you should actually design for is memory, because memory is what actually creates value after the event is over. Because if people cannot recall your event, it doesn't exist for their minds, right? And designing for memory means that you need to slow down, you need to repeat and being intentional about repetition. You need to create emotional hooks and all those kind of things that I always, mention in my sessions as well. Most people don't really focus on memory; they focus on attention. So that's one of the examples that I would highlight.
Right. So it's not about being big and loud and flashy. Uh,
Not
in a
at all. Not at all.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
because so the okay, so how does it work in our inside of our minds, right? So you flashy things or loud things do grab our attention. But the thing is that the next flashy or loud thing would grab your attention in a second, right? And we are overwhelmed with information that is thrown at us all the time. And our brains are just not wired to cope with that amount of information that we have right now. And that means that our brains have to prioritize what to pay attention to, right?
Sure.
So we have a certain bandwidth, if you like. And that's why you need to understand how attention works and to manage it properly so that uh, people people's focus stays with you longer. And that's when the focus is long enough, that's when um, it the thing becomes more memorable because it gets processed first in the working memory and then it gets transferred to the long-term memory, right? And so all those things are connected, but at the end of the day, you need to work to make sure that things are memorable for your audience, not just, flashy and loud things that catch attention, but lose it next moment.
Right. So is there an example or like a case study of a company who kind of believed in the flash and then, and I'm thinking trade shows because that's just kind of where my mind goes, but did that idea of going now towards the memory side of things, slowing down, and piquing people's emotions so that it was memorable. Do you have an example of that kind of transition or something? Because it's like cognitively for us to talk about this, it's like you kind of get it on that level, but kind of seeing or understanding an actual transformation might be kind of a neat thing too. Does one come to mind, or maybe when you consult, sometimes you don't get to, like, I don't know, enjoy the fruits of your labor because they take your consulting and run with it. I'm not sure.
Well, I wouldn't cite a specific case study, with the transition like that, but I'm sure you noticed that over lately we've got many more exhibitors are slowing down and actually focusing on things that previously were thought to be, like nice to have, but not something that companies would really double down on. They um,
Like what
like a lot of
specifically, Victoria? Yeah.
exhibitors now provide a space within their booth, right, where people can actually sit and relax. They actually think about what kind of furniture they can put there, what kind of decor goes in to create an environment that um, actually makes people comfortable, feel comfortable and kind of safe, and it's relaxing on many levels, right? So I think that switch is happening right now because people realize and companies realize how important it is to take care of that side of the things for the attendees, right? And
Mhm.
so they use their spaces to make people feel different because um, the typical trade show floor is very
Wow.
overwhelming in
Yeah.
a sensory
Sure.
sense, right? Um, and being that sort of spot on the trade show floor, which um, kind of makes people feel better in a physical sense and in an emotional sense. I think that's what a lot of exhibitors actually realize right now.
Interesting. So it's kind of this anchoring in that those good feelings of being relaxed and safety to the company's brand, their people, their products, perhaps because you're in proximity of that company. And so is that kind of,
Yeah.
am I getting it? Is that kind of the idea?
Well, I mean, it's one of the goals because, again, that creates, when I come to your space on a trade show floor and I feel um, comfortable, I may not initially be interested in whatever your booth is about, right? But that comfortable feeling that I have already gets associated with your brand, right? And so if other factors fit, I may get interested in what you're talking about in terms of your product or services, right? So I think it's indirect influence, but that indirect influence is actually much more effective than just pitching your services and having the loudest, the most flashy
Yeah.
displays and space. Yeah.
From like, and I get the idea. Is this been like, have we done experiments where, I don't know, people are wired up with things in their heads and they're going to trade show booths, or how do you kind of measure or test some of these theories? Because I think that's kind of fascinating, like where does it kind of rubber meets the road in that sense?
Yeah, it actually a lot of the things I won't lie here is very difficult to measure. We're
Sure.
talking about intangibles like emotions, right? And I don't
Hmm.
really believe that we can, you know, um, go and measure emotions by looking at people's faces or using some technologies that would, kind of measure facial expressions. I don't believe in that. I do believe that there are some indirect ways to measure, for example, emotions. There is a platform that I previously talked about that actually does emotion analytics through analyzing texts like reviews and interviews with the target audience. So what they do, they they are AI based, and they use technology to get the emotionally charged words from those texts and analyze that. Because when we talk, and that's something that, again, I love about language, it's such a powerful tool. When we talk about something, subconsciously, we sort of uh, uh, provide some emotionally charged words that we probably um, don't think about, in a direct way, but
Hmm.
that indicate what kind of feelings we have about, the topic of the conversation, right? The object or the moment. And so that platform provides their clients with a better understanding and sort of the way to measure emotions through analyzing text. So that's how you can do that, right? Um, and again, I do believe that a combination of technology and behavioral science is a winning one. I had a project, yes, a small project with a company called Fast Sensor. We ended up having a small write-up as the result of that project. So the company provides sensors for the trade show floor, and they are able to see the flow, right, where people go, what kind of movements
Dwell
are
time, that kind
typical.
of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So we kind of joined forces to understand that better, because you can see um, the flows, but it's also a question of why people move that specific way. So when you look at that from a behavioral perspective, it's easier to understand why something is happening. So I guess to answer your question, it's by experimenting with different solutions, and I would add by observing, in real time what people do, the actual behavior. Because when you use like things like surveys, and I'm not against surveys, I think
Hmm.
that's a relevant and effective tool, but it should be used in addition to some other ways like observation, because when you observe what people do in real time, you get much richer insights.
Right. And I think like your service that you offer and your consulting and bringing in the human behavior, it's never been a better time to do that. Because if you tried to
Yes.
doing this 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, probably we wouldn't have the AI, ability and the tracking and all of the data that we can get out of trade shows now.
Well, you are right, and I cannot agree more. It's actually what happened to me when I started like 10 years ago, actually, with you know uh, the event psychology approach. It felt like a lonely place, and not many people would get what I was talking about, and not many people would support it. And now I think there is a completely different picture in the industry and beyond it. Also, due to different, shifts that happened, especially after the pandemic, societal, economical,
Mm.
technological, like you say, right? It's all kind of contributed to better understanding and realization that this is an important part that we just cannot really ignore any.
Victoria, I'm curious if there's anything when people go through the certification process, or and you're training these event planners, event managers, what have you. Is there anything that's just like so counterintuitive that they learn? Like their event planning brain thought one thing, but research basically tells them another thing, and it's like, whoa, oh, that's different, or that I didn't realize that was going to work that way. Something coming to mind?
Yes, attention spans. I
Okay.
keep talking about that all the time because that's one of the most widespread myths out there. So
Okay.
people really think that attention spans are getting shorter. They talk about it all the time. They cite some experts or speakers they heard that from, right? In fact, research does not support that. There is no research that actually shows that attention spans are getting shorter. And so, why it's important to understand is for just for one reason, because when the assumption is wrong, then you apply the wrong solution to solve your challenge, right? So when you assume that it's all about attention getting shorter, then you fight that attention span, right? While in fact, what we should be talking about is a cognitive load, how overwhelmed people get, and what's that bandwidth, the cognitive bandwidth that the brains have, right? So when you understand that it's about cognitive load, your practical solutions, practical strategies become different because that those are completely two different things.
Right. So when I think attention spans, I almost think it's more distracting, right? It's like maybe we're pulled in many more ways, so it looks like the attention spans are shorter, but it's just there's a lot more coming at us, which
Yeah,
plays
I
into
mean
your cognitive
the
load
the,
part.
the simple example that I always sort of offer when I talk to my audiences about attention span, like um, think about the latest series that you just binge watched,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
what was it? What was that, right? So
Yeah.
how about your
Yeah.
attention span, right? You were
Right.
able to sit through, six,
Yeah.
seasons of whatever, Stranger Things, right? And nothing kind of happened to your attention span.
Yeah.
And it's a casual example, but it really shows, and there is a research that was published last year that is spanning 30 years that actually shows that attention spans are increasing across generations.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
that's one of the things that a lot of people are surprised to hear when I teach that as part of the
Hmm.
certification course on my trainings. So
Yeah.
that's one of the probably best examples to answer your
Yeah.
question.
Well, that's definitely takeaways for me that, it's not about the attention, it's about the memory, and it's about, so coming back around to that memory piece, Victoria, like when I think of something that is memorable, for me, it's like there's usually emotion involved. Maybe there's a uniqueness of whatever is happening, that it feels special, right? It's probably immersive in a way that more than one sense is taking it in, right? Or maybe experiential. Um, are those the kind of things that exhibitors and event planners should be focusing on, or what is the recipe for creating something memorable in your research and opinion?
Yes, a memory is a very complex thing, but it doesn't mean that uh, we uh, we should shy away from that, right?
Mhm.
We should really think about memory as like the main focus of ours, right? Um, so memory memory center in the brain and to emotions. That's what we know from neuroscience research, and that means that gives us kind of clues to what we should focus on when we design experiences. Sensory engagement is very important. and emotional involvement, emotional um, intensity is important as well. So those are two things, and I think they're very, very much relevant for exhibition design or conference design. Um, but again, when it comes to senses, for example, it's not about being the brightest, the loudest, because talking about cognitive load, right? So there is brains, our brains constantly prioritize what to pay attention to from all those sensory signals that we receive all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what gets prioritized are things that are valuable from an evolutionary perspective and things that are relevant to people, because we cannot pay attention or keep in
Right.
mind every single moment, every single thing or factor, right? Um, that we experience. That means that relevancy is very important. So understanding what is relevant for your audience is super important to make that experience memorable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Well, I have another question kind of in this same area, and that's we're talking about emotion. When we talk about this a lot with our clients too, because when we do our performances in trade show booths, people are laughing, they're having fun, there's a sense of curiosity, there's kind of positive emotions like that are associated to our presentations and the messaging that goes into that. Um, what other emotions should we arouse in our attendees and everything that is positive, right? Obviously, we don't want to bum them out. We don't want to have kind of negative emotions associated to the event. But are there certain emotions that play bigger than others? Not play bigger. I should just say are maybe more resourceful in
Mm-hmm.
events. You know?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned negative emotions. I would argue that in some contexts, negative emotions are even better.
Oh, do
Yeah,
tell.
well,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, what I say again, it should be contextual, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, you don't want to make people angry when you are talking to them on the trade show floor, right? But
Sure.
for example, when you have a conference and you are thinking about formats, um, let's say you're creating a panel, and what we see most of the time, panels are very boring. Why?
Sure.
Because they are very smooth, because they do not allow for any argument, right? So
Oh,
what if
conflict. Yeah.
instead of that smooth and neutral panel, you create debates, right? When people have the opposite opinions, and
Mm.
suddenly, well, that produces a certain amount of negative emotions, right? People start thinking about it, right? Not only at the moment when the conversation is happening, but actually before that, if you announce that through your marketing materials, for example, they might have the opposite opinions, and they might have different emotions about that, different feelings,
Right.
but that's exactly what creates engagement. So negative
Yeah.
emotions um, uh, don't mean that this is
It's
bad,
bad.
not
Yeah.
necessarily, right?
Right. Okay.
Now
That's an
to
interesting take. I like that.
Yeah, now to your question about other positive emotions, I think one of the things that we should keep in mind is comfort. Because when people feel comfortable, uh, relaxed even, right, they are more likely to share what they think, they are more likely to participate,
Yeah.
they are more because they feel safe enough to express themselves, right? And their state of mind sort of suggests more
Hmm.
engagement. Um, one of the other emotions that comes to mind is nostalgia. I think that's
Yeah. Yeah.
especially important for the event marketing,
Yeah.
Or let's say if you're a destination
Yeah.
marketing professional, that's important as well, right?
Yeah.
So those are the things that kind of create again an environment, a vibe, a certain vibe
Yeah.
that nudges people to bond, to kind of
Yeah.
um, to share more about
True.
themselves, right? So and fun, yeah, I think that's universal emotion that generally makes things much better. Again, contributing to people feeling joyful, more comfortable, more
Yeah.
relaxed, less stressed, less anxious. When we have a lot of overwhelm, cognitive,
Yeah.
emotional, behavioral overwhelm, right? That's important to decrease, to reduce anxiety levels. So making sure that people have fun solves this problem.
Yeah. I think you raised 2 points that I like to comment on. That one was like the safety, emotional safety, and that piece, buyer safety, if you will, at a trade show, perhaps. I think with a lot more people being neurodivergent, now that we know more and that sort of thing, maybe social anxiety related to that, I can see that being even more and more important. Not just for everyone, but for those people to have a place where, yeah, they can make it more easily to do business or what have you. The other thing I was going to comment, that you mentioned the nostalgia piece, that is a theme that I've seen cropping up at trade shows more and more. And whether it's the 80s or, what is that nostalgic like timeline for your ideal customer, right? Like how old are they now? And so immediately that sense of familiarity creeps in, and you do feel connected to that company in a way, just because they're bringing back these fond memories. So I think that's a fantastic example of making people feel
Absolutely.
something. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. And those are great points. I just recently attended an event and they had like an after party in the 60s style.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people appreciated that because it's sort of a playful theme, but also,
Yeah.
again, nostalgia because I think um, uh, people love uh, feeling or getting back in their memories and their minds in the times that you
Yeah.
know feel feel good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and again, when you design it with intention, like you use specific music, you engage other senses, right? That's kind of how it makes the moment, that experience, memorable.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for spending time with us here. I think I could pick your brain for a while. I shouldn't say pick your brain. People, I was taught by a friend of mine, Stephanie Staples. You don't never say pick your brain, because no one wants their brain picked. I
Mm.
should have said I could absorb your genius all day. So
Oh, I
that's
love that.
nicer, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So Victoria, if people want to reach out to you, maybe they go, hey, we gotta think about this from a psychological point of view. How can people find you? Where can you be found on socials and
Absolutely.
website? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've just redesigned my website, and it's like a one stop for everything, for reaching out and for resources, um, which is called eventpsychology.pro. So you can find me there, or you can you know, get more information about the services
Okay.
that I provide and resources and all that. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find it by, Victoria Matey, just searching Victoria Matey.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two main contact details.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for sharing what you do. I find it fascinating, and I'm probably my next trade show. I'm probably going to be thinking about things a little bit differently, and as I analyze things and see what's working and what's not. So, again, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.